So you were talking about trauma and saying that that is something that sits in that space for you with your mental health, becoming unwell.
Yes, I was talking about trauma, but before I get to trauma, I also want to comment on, the comments you made on what I just said. I think that it is important, like you said, people talk about mental illness and not about mental health, and I think that's what both our organizations have in common, is that we are pro mental health,
Yeah.
while also being there to support those who are mentally unwell. I think that that's what I notice a lot about the work you do, and the
Yeah.
services you offer, that there are services that are about promoting your mental health, about, taking care of your mental well-being, and I think that's why many people should take advantage of these services that we offer, these workshops that we do. We do it because we want people to be mentally well. It's not just about you battling a particular mental illness, but it means just being proactive, about taking care of your mental health, and taking measures. And then to come to the trauma, yeah, I think that the trauma for me, um, I grew up, like I said, in a home where there was domestic violence. I think that I was very young. I'm sure, I think I was probably 7, the first time I witnessed abuse within the home. I think life was perfect before then, and I think that I never recognized how much that affected, my upbringing and like my personality and the person that I became, because when I saw that happen, it's difficult as a child to process what's happening and to see, okay, what's happening now, my father is being abusive towards my mother, and you don't know how to process all these things. But I think that my natural instinct was to be very protective over my mother, so I think that for all of my life, I've been my mother's protector, because ever since the day I witnessed her being abused, I think that I was always uneasy, and I think it developed sort of some type of resentment towards my father that it created, because I think that even as a child, when I would go to the street, I wouldn't be very relaxed, because I'd be the person that is always coming in between my father and my mother when they were fighting, and obviously being there to protect my mother. And I think it's a conversation that I had with my sister not long ago, because she was like, I think you really don't love our father, or you. And I was like, no. For me, it goes back to whatever it is, that for most of my life, I felt really helpless as to what I could do to protect my mother, And then when I grew up, I ended up, even during the period where I was about to drop out of college, which is what led to it, I ended up being involved in physical altercations with my father, in the process of protecting my mother. And that time I was in my early 20s, and I think that it's something that nobody should ever go through, but I didn't do it because something that's against our African culture. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because it's the predicament that I found myself in, So part of my story is that I had a lot of nightmares, when I was in college, because the semester before I dropped out, was the semester where my father disowned me. I think that our relationship reached a point of, I think it was a complete breakdown, financially, and he was the person that was supporting, but also emotionally as people, because of the fights that we got into. I think that I would dream that my father was fighting me in my sleep, and I didn't understand this, and I think that months would go by and me not getting support and no longer being able to afford food at varsity, no longer being affording to sustain myself, was having a toll on me. And although I had supportive friends, also people that I was reaching out to, when I was hungry, but it was difficult because you got tired of asking people, and got tired of being the person that's always, needing other people's help, and I think that's why it affected my study. I couldn't study anymore because of what I was worrying about. And at that time, my mother was also not at home. My parents were in the process of divorce. So it was a lot of things that were happening that then added to my depression. But I think that childhood trauma had not healed, and that's why I carried it with me. And I think that what it did to me, like for me, it made me not want to talk about my problems as a person. For me, what was happening in the home, my mother was my biggest concern. So when I had something that was wrong or bothering me, I would never talk about it because I felt like I was adding to the problems that already exist in the home, you know. So I felt like I have to be strong for my mother. I have to be a protector. So I developed, you know, this thing of not being able to talk about what bothers me, not only in the home, but with my friends, with anyone. I wouldn't talk, you know, because my default setting is to not talk, you know, and to be strong for other people that are there. And with all the things that I was going through in Boston, no one knew because I didn't talk about it, you know, because I was that strong person. And eventually things build up. And when things do build up, you can't keep it in anymore. You know, it comes in when it comes in. I
it
only
comes in
talked about
waves.
it when I had
it
to.
just like washes over you.
Yes.
And it's so heavy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.